Welcome back, everybody. To Everybody Knows We're Lame. I got the title right this time, and I gotta say, an amazing turnout for episode one. The bar was packed, and I imagine it's gonna. The numbers are only growing here, Chris. We're on a rocket ship to the moon, and I think we're turning a lot of people onto this small show. Cheers.
I think I compared it to Dave Stapleton on Twitter. Like Dave Stapleton, you remember him? He played for the Red Sox in the
Yes.
80s.
Right.
He played 9 years, and every year his batting average went down. And I think
No,
that will
no. That's not the end. I'm saying
that
we're the
will be
opposite.
our
We're growing.
listeners or
No,
our
no.
viewership. For every episode be worse than the next.
Well, we'll see when this gets 1% of the audience we had last week, but we soldier on. We're here not for the masses. We're here for the few that love Cheers and just want to talk about the gang at the bar. So we've got episode 3 and 4 this week.
We
And,
do.
episode 3. I don't know if it's not the best written episode, but it sticks out to me. It's definitely one of my favorite episodes in the early seasons.
Oof, I completely disagree.
Really?
Yeah. So
I
episode
like
three
it kind of because of how corny it is. They try to be very Boston, and something about that is charming to me.
It's a failed attempt to be Boston by I don't know if the writer is Tom Reeder. He doesn't write again the rest of the season, which I'm thankful for. This episode is pretty
Really?
rough. I think the reason you like this episode is because you look like that guy Eddie in the episode,
Do you think so?
like an old version. Like that's you in like 20 years.
As any chubby Italian, you could pretty
But
much
he has the
pin as
Yankee
me.
hat on and
Right.
everything.
Yeah.
I want someone to if anyone's watching this, I want you to on Twitter please get like a screenshot of Eddie and Mike and people can judge.
Yeah, great. That's what I need. Another comparison to a fat man. There were some plot holes that I've noted. I don't know if you want to get into anything first, but the plot holes are really what stuck out to me. And
Yeah,
that is, well, I'll start with the character of Eddie enters the bar immediately. The Red Sox game just ended. They're watching it on TV. Eddie enters seconds later and says, Red Sox bar, which there's no evidence of.
Right. Yes.
And then claims he came from the game. Did he sprint there? Have you ever tried to get out of Fenway?
Well,
on a semi-packed night?
they called him out on that though.
Or do they? I don't remember.
Yeah, and he said, well, I left after the seventh inning stretch. He called it the seventh inning retch.
Oh, that's right. That's
For comedic value.
a great joke. The seventh.
It's very funny. Yes, I'm
You're right about that.
Forgot
Then
that.
I would suggest why the hell did it take him so long to get there?
Yeah, well, that at least they explained it. I'm happy they at least went through
That's
the
fair.
effort to. But yes, you're right. Why would you think that's a Red Sox bar? Because they just shut a TV off? It doesn't make any sense. That's very strange.
And then another hole in that conversation is Norm entered seconds earlier and says he just got out of work. Yet if the Red Sox game is just ending, it's like roughly 10 o'clock, maybe later. And Carla says to the gentleman, Eddie, the bar is closed when he walks in. Norm just got there. Cliff just ordered a drink. None of this makes any goddamn sense.
No, there's some issues. And even at the end of the episode, like when Carla, just in case someone has not seen this classic episode of television, it's the Tortelli Tort, and basically Carla goes apeshit on this Yankee fan, a customer, and
Yes.
the customer threatens to sue Sam and take the bar, and Carla has to go through some therapy to calm herself down. But in true sitcom fashion, she doesn't, and at the very end of the show, she throws a beer at a customer.
Right.
But Carla had just entered, and the customer says, "Where's my beer?" But Carla had just walked into the bar. So, like, why would that customer assume Carla forgot her beer? He never ordered one from her. So there's a lot of issues with this half hour. I thought it was actually pretty bad. I give the episode a 41. I think it's a below average episode of television, period.
It's poorly written, but it's for some reason one of my favorite. I can't say favorites, but it sticks out to me. I always remembered this episode from even when I watched my early days of watching Cheers. For some reason, I always remembered this episode. Maybe because it was so bad.
Or maybe that man like you saw yourself in this Eddie character.
Such a connection to this guy. I am Eddie.
You really are. And you never. I don't think you ever. Do you ever appear again? I don't believe we ever see Eddie again.
We never see Eddie again. And there again, if we get back to the plot holes, it's if he wants to sue Sam for Carla's behavior, which I'm not sure how that would really hold up. But say he wants to, why is he satisfied with? Okay, she's gone through some therapy and she's all right. Obviously, he's a sleazebag. He wants to fuck over the bar.
Right.
Why does he care about Carla's mental health at the end of the episode?
And the other thing too is, and maybe this episode actually has a lot of personal connection to you. So in that episode, Eddie threatens Sam and says, "Oh, if I won't sue you as long as you fire Carla."
Right.
So I mean, it kind of like with Barstow. I could see one day Portnoy being like, "Listen, Kirk, I'll let you. I won't fire you as long. I'll keep the show going as long as you fire Mike."
In fact, a deal like that has been struck, and then I think everyone just forgot about it. It came out
Yes.
unscathed.
Yeah, and which so did Carla.
Yes.
This episode really is the Mike
That's
Fury.
why. Chris, you've got to the bottom. That is why I just do feel, and I've always been that way. So I would always have felt a connection to this guy. Eddie is Eddie is me.
Yes, he is you, and this whole story is you, and that's why I gave it a 41. Not a very good episode.
There were a couple episodes. I'm sorry, a couple insults rather, that I wanted to run by you that stuck out to me in this episode because I don't understand them, and I'm curious if they were more popular in the '80s.
All right,
One
I'll do
would
my
be one would be Sam calls Diane mullet head.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So so this episode premiered on October 14th, 1982, which means I was just about to turn 3 years old.
Okay.
So I don't remember. The only mullet I know is, what we know is a mullet, short hair and then long hair.
Right.
Diane doesn't necessarily have that hairstyle. I wouldn't call Diane's hairstyle a mullet. So
No, not at all.
Strange to me. That must have some other meaning I don't understand either.
Another one was Carlo refers to Diane as Whitey. Now I think I understand what that means, but again, I don't know why it's an insult, especially in the '80s.
Well, I think maybe like a Stepford wife kind of thing. I'm guessing. That's how I kind of took it when I heard it. It was like, oh, you're very waspy. I mean, that was kind of an insult in the '80s to be called like a waspy, very like prim and proper. So I guess Whitey might apply. They're kind of odd. Carlo would be the one calling her that, but
yeah, I'll accept that one. And then the last one would just I understand it, but it just seems like poor writing. Carla calls Diane snitch face. Unless I missed the period where that was a big insult, I feel like that was just lazy.
Yeah, this episode's written pretty lazily. These insults, and it sucks because Cheers usually is pretty good at the put down. Like I feel that's a big part of the show is how they all just kind of bust balls and have fun with each other. And usually, I mean, it's definitely corny. It's '80s. It's television. I get it, but it's usually better than this. It's a bit more edge than this one. This one felt really hokey.
Oh, and one last I don't know if you could call this a plot hole, but thing I questioned is this was the episode where the guy enters the bar and his one of his siblings died, right? That wasn't the next episode.
Yes.
So why so they say this guy has 12 siblings. Every time one of them dies, he inherits all their money.
Right.
How would that possibly be the case?
It
Every
really
sibling in order leaves all their money just to him?
Well, I guess maybe they give it to the remaining siblings, and then in theory, as less and less siblings are there, he gets more and more. It's how I took it.
I guess,
but it doesn't really make any sense, and it's not really explained very. Like it's just for the quick joke, and if you're gonna be that, I think this writer was trying to be like morbid and like dark comedy, but it has to have some presence in reality. I think that scene would have been funnier if he was really upset that his siblings had died, but yet was still buying people drinks, maybe just because out of just trying to pass his suffering off, but the rest of the bar is really happy to get the free drinks. That would have been a funnier dynamic than everyone just happy that these people we don't know died.
I guess so. Norm did have one funny line about it. The first 6 or 7 was a little morbid. Like that's kind of funny.
Yes.
And the coach with the napkins. Those are the only two real funny dynamics in this episode. Otherwise, it was very, very cheesy.
That napkin bit I thought was really funny.
Yeah,
I love how they do it in the cold open, and then it just plays out the entire time. And they do it in really unexpected spots. You kind of forget about the napkin, and then it comes back again.
And that's a funny coach thing to do. That's like realistic, where it's funny. He's dumb, but he's not so dumb where you're like, how could this man function in real life?
Right. It wasn't like he was forgetting his name again, like he was in episode 1. He knew his name. He just bought a bunch of shitty napkins, which is totally plausible. That was the best part of the episode for me. What do you give the episode?
Well, you give it a 41, the lowest rating we've had so far.
Correct.
By far. I give it much higher, I guess, because of my connection to Eddie. I'll give it a 68. I've got a personal connection to it. I can't go below average. It sticks out of my mind so much that
makes it your second, right in the middle, because you gave episode 2 a 70. So this is middle ground for you so far.
All right.
All right.
I'll stand by it.
So let's talk episode 4, Sam at 11, which is, I'm going to say, my favorite episode so far. I think this
Oh, really?
episode's really good.
That's funny you say that. Boy, you want a disagreement? Come to this show. I'll
This
tell
is
you, because
some hot takes.
these are some hot Cheers takes here. Because I thought this was a little, but I understood the need for it. It moves along the relationship between Sam and Diane, but by the end of it, I felt it was a little pointless. I thought well, let's set up the episode for those who haven't seen it.
Yes.
We introduce your guy, Fred Dryer.
Fred Dryer, yeah.
former Red Sox teammate of Sam Malone turned local broadcaster, I guess.
I guess he's like the Bob Lobel, I'm guessing, of this time.
I did enjoy that they make fun of the broadcaster voice. Especially at that time that everyone did. I like that they made fun of that. But my first takeaway was Fred Dryer as an actor, as a guy that's going to be I think they went with definitely the right choice. He doesn't seem cool enough to be Sam Malone. Sam Malone is a cool
he doesn't.
Fred Dryer seems like he's trying to be cool.
Yeah, it's funny. So Fred Dryer played in the NFL for 13 years, and then this was right around when he retired, and then he became he became an actor full time. He was on a show called Hunter, which was on NBC from 84 to 91. And in that show, he plays. Have you ever seen Hunter?
I've not.
Okay, yeah, it's not good, but like it's basically like a cop. He's kind of like he was more ruthless. Like he would kill people on the show,
right.
And he kind of like solved crimes when he had like a woman partner. It was pretty successful. It was pretty lousy. But on that show, he kind of played like a cooler guy, like trying to be cool guy. But he doesn't have it's not as easy and casual as Ted Danson is. Ted Danson is so relaxed as Sam, and Fred Dryer isn't that.
Yeah, because even now when you see Ted Danson on Curb Your Enthusiasm, he's just playing himself. He seems like kind of a cool guy, like a laid-back, easygoing guy. And that comes out. I think Sam Malone needs to be that guy. Fred Dryer wouldn't have fit. I don't think it would have worked.
I agree.
So the premise of the episode is Fred Dryer on his sports show, or is it just a segment for the local news? Or is it
I think it's a segment. I think he's like Bob Lobel. I think it's like the 6 o'clock news.
Okay. So he's interviewing Sam Malone, which on its own seems a little odd, unless maybe they did that a lot more back then. But the idea that he would just be interviewing Sam Malone like about the old days strikes me as a little unusual.
I don't think it is as odd as you think, because back then, I'll play my old man card here. The TV news broadcasts were longer, and the sports sections were really long because you didn't have ESPN, you didn't have all of these options, or if you did, they were in their infancy. So you'd have a lot more. It was like a whole thing. That's why like people like Mike Lynch, Bob Lobel, even John Dennis, these guys became like household names in the New England area because they were on TV for more than just 3 minutes. It wasn't just it was like, could be like a 10, 20-minute spot.
Oh, okay. All right. That makes a little more sense then. But was McEnroe, again, I know you were just a boy, but was McEnroe that big a name at that time?
Oh, yeah. He was huge.
He was.
I remember in the 80s, McEnroe was a really big deal. He was probably like the most exciting person in tennis. Easy. He might not have been the best because, you eventually had like Ivan Lendl and those guys. But maybe at that time, he might have been early 80s.
It's funny because I know McEnroe was good, but I really know him for the meltdowns, like the famous meltdown, obviously.
Yeah.
But I kind of always thought his fame was sort of gimmicky rather than being like an absolute star athlete. I also didn't know how big tennis was at that time.
He was great in tennis. I mean, tennis was a pretty big deal. I mean, it's never, as long as I've been alive, I don't remember it being the biggest thing in the world, but McEnroe was a huge name.
Okay. So the reason I bring up McEnroe is if you haven't seen it is because, so Fred Dryer's doing this, or Dave is doing this episode with interview with Sam, and they get into the crux of the interview. Sam's telling a story, and then halfway through, someone just runs in and says, Dave McEnroe has a comment something he wants to get off his chest. And Dave says, "See you later, Sam," and he runs out. And then Sam's kind of heartbroken. My first thought is, was McEnroe in Boston? Did he just happen to be in Boston? Why would Dave know, like, all right, I got to drop everything and run to see John McEnroe?
I guess so. Maybe he was doing a tennis event in Boston. And maybe that's why McEnroe was such a great catch for him, because he's only in Boston once in a while. That storyline actually is less insane than you think it was. Like, looking back,
okay.
It isn't as crazy as you think.
I'll take your word for it. It seemed a little fishy to me. But what really bothered me is how beaten up over it Sam is. That seems a little exaggerated. I get that they're trying to show that maybe Sam has a little kind of a fragile ego, and they need the relationship between Sam and Diane to take a step there. But it just felt like that wasn't really a big enough deal for Sam to be that bummed out about it. Especially the line where he says, something to the effect of, "I'm going to be okay, but tonight I want to feel bad about this."
Yeah, I bought it. I don't know. I mean, he's a guy that I think for a lot of these pro athletes it's tough. And then he I think the other thing too is the guys in the bar respect Sam so much, and this is played throughout the entire series. Norm and Cliff. Not only is Sam this great ladies' man to them,
Yeah,
but
they worship him.
They really do. And when he gets embarrassed, this goes out the entire series. Like it's rough for him. His ego his ego is really important to Sam Malone. Like that's a big deal.
That's fair.
His pride is a huge deal, and I think that Danza plays it really well. It feels honest to me. It didn't feel forced. I thought it was great. I thought it was a really good scene at the end with him and Diane in the back room, and him just kind of saying like exactly that. Like I'm going to feel really really lousy tonight.
See, that struck me as a little. It seemed a little harsh given the scenario. But the other line that felt a little harsh to me was when he said, "This is a period at the end of my career." But he's been retired for a few years at that point, so it just seemed to me like this was kind of an overreaction.
I would agree with that. That was a little much. I mean, you figure by this point he's been out of baseball for 5 years. They said,
right?
I think the period had been written a long time ago.
I would say so. And throughout the series, you'll kind of see. I guess maybe you could say that's the growth of Sam Malone. But throughout the series, you kind of see he's willing to joke about his career. He says he doesn't remember, he's blackout drunk for certain games, and like he's kind of willing to poke fun at himself.
Yeah, he is to an extent. I think he's, as the series goes on, he's more willing to poke fun at his athletic endeavors,
right?
But then less likely to poke fun at his looks. He's very vain, obviously, and that becomes more of a thing as the show goes on, and he ages, which is kind of cool. The show's on for so long, and we're going to be doing all these episodes, Mike.
We certainly are, buddy. Not a daunting task at all. Only 270 to go.
I mean, just think. I mean, 271. I mean,
that's right.
Don't forget, then they're all going to be great and fun for us to do.
Absolutely, and always fresh.
And and we're going to have interesting takes, and this is going to be something else.
We should get Eddie on sometime. We should get the character of Eddie on, the actor.
Oh, the man who played Eddie? I believe he died.
Damn it.
The actor is dead. I did look him up.
Much like myself, I'm sure it was early. We'll see.
No, he died only a few years ago.
Oh, all right. He had a decent run then.
Yeah, I did try to get him for the show, but once again, another person I tried to look up for the show was once again
kick the bucket
in the ground. So one thing I want to mention of this episode too is we see Harry the Hat, Harry Anderson.
Yes, yeah. So I love the idea of that character, a guy who comes in and scams the bar. But these seemed like very basic. Like if you watch Better Call Saul, Slippin' Jimmy in his Slippin' Jimmy days had some great scams that you could believe. This Harry the Hat, you have to be the dumbest fucking guy in the world. You have to be dumber than Coach to fall for these things.
That's not fair. So you're comparing one of the great TV shows, in the medium of the show, which medium of television rather, which is Better Call Saul, which is made in 2020,
right?
To Cheers in the early 80s with just a
maybe it's not fair, but my point is that's a great scam artist. When I've seen a great scam artist, it's hard for me to watch Harry the Hat and think that he's getting $20 at a Coach and giving him $1 back. I'm not buying it. I don't even think Coach would fall for that.
I really like the character. I really enjoy. Did you watch Night Court growing up?
No.
Have you ever seen an episode of Night Court?
I don't know. I'm slightly familiar with it only because 30 Rock did an episode about it.
That's right, they did. Yes. Yeah. So that was a pretty big show. Once again, another NBC. So this show had 2 NBC leading men. That was kind of odd. But Night Court was a pretty big hit, and
right.
And it was a fun show. It's kind of dumb. Like you'll watch it now. It doesn't age very well, but it's an interesting show, and he's good in it. So I kind of like Harry Anderson. Like I have kind of like a relationship with him. Like it was on all the time when I was a kid. It was on syndication. Like so I kind of have maybe more of a Harry Anderson fan than someone who never grew up with him would be.
That's fair. But I do like the character. I like a guy that comes in, and some of his, throughout the series, we'll see some of his scams, and they get better. I'll give him that.
That's true. These are the weakest scams he does.
Yes,
I
for sure.
would agree with that.
But one other thing I wanted to point out is that Coach, we see we find out that he had the most hit by pitch. He led the league in hit by pitches,
right?
Which makes a lot of sense. But one issue with it, again, I'm curious why. I've always been curious why Sam and Coach have this bond that they have when it's pretty clear Coach was never a pitching coach. Throughout the
No.
series, they allude to him being a third base coach.
Right.
He's never a manager. So I'm curious why he dealt so closely with Sam.
Yeah, it's a fair.
They never really addressed that.
They should have made him a pitching coach. It's definitely like shorthand there by the writers, but I don't know. I guess I don't get super hung up. I mean, never. Sometimes coaches do have, but you're right. It's a fair criticism, I guess.
What would you give the episode?
I give this one an 86. This one I
Okay.
really loved.
See, I like this more than the last one, but I will say not as much as you. I'm going to give it a right in the same range. I'm going to give it a 72.
Terrible job by you.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to mention was the writers. So this was written by the Charles brothers, who also wrote the pilot.
Right.
And I think personally, I know your ratings are different, but when it's not a Charles brother episode, these first 4, it's been kind of lousy. And I went and checked, and the Charles brothers aren't writing another episode until the final 2 of the season.
Oh, interesting.
So
Well,
I'll
say
concerned.
this. Regardless of how much I like them, this definitely moves the Sam and Diana relationship a lot further along. You can tell the
Right.
guys who had the vision for the series were definitely writing it.
Yes, and you can tell the guy, the showrunners, the most important thing to the showrunners is that Sam and Diane relationship. You can just tell that's their main focus. So I don't know what that means for the next. I mean, I've seen these episodes, but it's been a while, and I certainly haven't looked at them as closely as we're doing this now. But there are some other writers that I think, including I think the showrunners of Frasier have a episode in this season, and then so does Sam Simon, who we talked about last week, and he did some Simpsons episodes as well.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on these episodes you want to kind of go over?
I think that's about it for me. How about you?
No, I think it's good. I think our chemistry was Kirk. So Kirk
We're building, baby.
mocked our chemistry on the show. I think it's been good. I think this episode was better.
Of course. I'm going to tell you, Chris, much like the pilot episode for Cheers, it takes a while to build.
I
And by
agree.
season 11, we'll be getting drunk on the Tonight Show, you and I.
I have a prediction. I will get an invite to your wedding. That
like
is the goal
I like
of this show.
Well,
Everybody
of
knows
course,
your
I've got to
wedding,
invite my
and
partner.
I will help shave you at the wedding, whatever the weird culture is there.
Yes.
And we'll throw money on the floor. What the fuck's going on? That's going to be an exciting evening.
I look forward to that, buddy.
Good.
And we will see, without the Charles brothers, we'll see what we're in for next week. Until then, sorry, we're closed.